The first light of the twin suns touched the metal walls of the Valari Academy. The sky turned orange and purple, and the air smelled like morning dew, mixed with the strange flowers that grew only on this planet. It was a beautiful day. It was training day. 12 young cubs walked toward the combat arena. Their fur was different colors, some gray, some brown, some with spots like a wild cat. They had 4 arms each, sharp claws, and eyes that could see in the dark. They were Valari, one of the strongest warrior races in the galaxy. But right now, they were just students. Young students who still had much to learn. The cubs talked loudly as they walked. They pushed each other and made jokes. Today was special. Today, their human instructor would teach them a new fighting technique. They had waited for this lesson for 3 whole weeks. "I heard humans can break bones with one punch," said a small cub named Riki. His fur was gray with white spots. He was the smallest in the group, but he talked the most. "That is nothing," said Bokri, the largest cub. His fur was dark brown, almost black. He stood taller than the others and always walked in front. "My father says Valari warriors can kill 10 humans before breakfast." "Your father talks too much," said another cub named Tovi. She was female, with beautiful golden fur. Instructor Tejo killed a shadow beast alone. "Can your father do that?" Bokri did not answer. He just made an angry sound and walked faster. The cubs reached the arena. It was a large open space, with sand on the ground, and high walls around it. There were weapons on the walls, swords, spears, and strange tools that the cubs did not know how to use yet. In the center of the arena, there was a circle drawn in white paint. That was where they trained. But today, something was wrong. The arena was empty. The cubs stopped walking. They looked around with confused eyes. Instructor Tejo was always here before them. He was always standing in the center of the circle, waiting. He never smiled. He never talked much, but he was always there. "Where is he?" asked Riki. Nobody answered. The cubs walked slowly into the arena. Their feet made soft sounds on the sand. They looked left and right, but there was no one. Just empty space and morning light. "Maybe he is late," said Tovi. "Humans are never late," said Bokri. But his voice was not so confident now. "My father says humans are obsessed with time. They count every second." "Then where is he?" Tovi asked again. The cubs stood in the circle and waited. 1 minute passed. Then 5 minutes. Then 10. The twin suns rose higher in the sky. The air became warmer. Still, no Instructor Tejo. Bokri started to laugh. It was a mean laugh, the kind of laugh that was not really funny. "I knew it," he said. "Humans are weak. They talk big, but when it is time to work, they hide." "Do not say that," said a soft voice. The cubs turned around. A human female was standing at the entrance of the arena. She was not tall, but she stood very straight. Her black hair was tied behind her head. Her eyes were calm and cold, like water in a deep well. She wore the same gray uniform as Instructor Tejo. This was Yuna. She was Tejo's assistant instructor. She helped with the training and took care of the cubs when they got hurt. She was quiet, always watching, never saying much. Some cubs thought she was kind. Others thought she was scary. Nobody really knew her. "Instructor Yuna," said Riki. He bowed his head quickly. The other cubs did the same. Even Bokri lowered his eyes, though he did not bow. Yuna walked into the arena. Her steps were silent, like a ghost moving through fog. She stopped a few feet away from the cubs and looked at them one by one. "Instructor Tejo will not come today," she said. The cubs looked at each other. This had never happened before. In 6 months of training, Tejo had never missed a single day. He trained them in rain. He trained them in heat. He trained them when he was sick. He never stopped. "Is he hurt?" asked Tovi. Her voice was worried. Yuna did not answer right away. She looked at the sky for a moment, like she was thinking about something far away. Then she looked back at the cubs. "Training is canceled today," she said. "Go back to your rooms." Study the books I gave you last week. Tomorrow, Instructor Tejo will return. But why? Asked Riki. What happened to him? That is not your concern, said Yuna. Bokri made a sound like a growl. It was low and angry. We have a right to know, he said. We are his students. We came here to learn from the best human warrior. If he is too weak to come, we should know. Yuna's eyes moved to Bokri. For a moment, something changed in her face. It was small, just a tiny movement of her lips, but it made Bokri take a step back. Weak, Yuna repeated the word slowly. You think humans are weak? Bokri tried to stand tall again. Everyone says Valari are stronger. We have 4 arms, we have claws, we can see in darkness. Humans have nothing. They are soft, they break easily. Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that made cubs want to run away. Go back to your rooms, she said again. This is my last warning. She turned around and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps were still silent. She did not look back. The cubs stood in the arena, watching her leave. The morning light was bright now, but the arena felt cold and empty. Something was wrong. They could feel it in their bones. I do not like this, said Tovi. Neither do I, said Riki. But Bokri was not scared. He was angry. His claws came out, sharp and white. His eyes became narrow. She is hiding something, he said. The human instructor did not come because he is scared. Or maybe he ran away. Maybe humans are cowards after all. We should not say such things, said a quiet cub named Doru. He had gray fur and kind eyes. He never talked much, but when he talked, others listened. Instructor Tejo has taught us well. We should respect him. Respect. Bokri laughed. Respect is for the strong. If he cannot even come to training, he does not deserve respect. He looked at the other cubs. His eyes were bright with anger and something else. Something dangerous. I say we go to his chamber, Bokri said. I say we find out the truth. Who is with me? The cubs looked at each other. Fear and curiosity mixed in their eyes. They knew they should not go. They knew Instructor Yuna had told them to stay away, but they were young. And the young always want to know what the old try to hide. One by one, the cubs nodded. Then let us go, said Bokri. He smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Let us see what the mighty human is hiding. They left the arena together, walking toward the sleeping quarters. The twin suns watched them from above. The wind carried a strange smell, something like blood and fire. But the cubs did not notice. They were too busy thinking about what they would find. None of them knew that this day would change their lives forever. The halls of the Valari Academy were long and quiet. Metal walls reflected the morning light. The floor was smooth and cold under the cubs' feet. They walked together, 12 young warriors following Bokri toward the sleeping quarters. Their hearts beat fast. This was against the rules. If the elders caught them, there would be punishment. But excitement was stronger than fear. They wanted answers. They wanted to know why their instructor had abandoned them. Walk quietly, Bokri whispered. Do not let anyone see us. The cubs moved like shadows. Their claws clicked softly on the floor. Their forearms swung at their sides. They passed empty classrooms and closed doors. The academy was big, built for hundreds of students. But this early in the morning, most Valari were still sleeping. How far is his chamber? Asked Riki. His small legs were getting tired. Not far, said Tovi. She had been to the instructor quarters once, when she got hurt during training. It is in the east wing, past the garden. They walked through a large open area filled with strange plants. Purple flowers grew tall. Blue vines hung from the ceiling. Small insects flew around, making soft buzzing sounds. This was the garden, a peaceful place where instructors came to rest. But today, the cubs did not stop to look at the flowers. As they walked, Bokri talked. His voice was low but full of anger. I never trusted that human, he said. From the first day, I knew something was wrong. He looks at us like we are insects. Like we are nothing. He looks at everyone the same way, said Doru. That does not mean anything. It means he thinks he is better than us, Bokri replied. Humans always think they are special. But what do they have? No claws. No strength. No extra arms. They are the weakest species in the galaxy, yet they act like they rule the stars. Some cubs nodded. Others looked uncomfortable. They had all heard stories about humans. Strange stories that did not make sense. Humans were weak. Yes, but somehow, they had spread across 100 planets. Somehow, they had won wars against species 10 times stronger. Nobody could explain how. My grandfather fought humans once, said a cub named Miru. She had spotted fur and bright green eyes. He said they do not stop. You break their bones, and they keep fighting. You cut their arms, and they use their teeth. He said it was unnatural. Old stories, Bokri said with a wave of his hand. Our grandfathers like to make things sound exciting. The truth is simpler. Humans are weak. They just got lucky. They reached the east wing. The hallway here was darker. The lights were dim, and the walls had old marks on them, scratches and dents from years of use. The instructor quarters were at the end of this hall. Suddenly, Tovi stopped walking. Wait, she said. Everyone stopped. They looked at her with confused eyes. Maybe we should not do this, Tovi said. Her voice was shaking a little. Instructor Yuna told us to go back. If we get caught, are you scared? Bokri asked. His voice was mocking. No, said Tovi. But she did not sound sure. Then stop talking and follow me. Bokri walked forward. The other cubs followed. Even Tovi, after a moment, started walking again. She did not want to look weak in front of the others. They reached a large metal door. Above the door, there was a small sign with human letters. Most cubs could not read human language. But they knew this was Instructor Tejo's chamber. They had seen him enter this door many times after training. Bokri stood in front of the door. His forearms were at his sides. His claws were out. He looked at the other cubs with a proud smile. This is it, he said. Time to find out what the human is hiding. Should we knock? Asked Riki. Knock? Bokri laughed. We are Valari warriors. We do not knock. He raised his fist to bang on the door. But before he could touch it, the door opened. Instructor Yuna stood there. The cubs jumped back. Their hearts almost stopped. How did she know? How did she get here before them? They had not seen her in the hallway. They had not heard her footsteps. Yuna looked at them with cold eyes. Her face showed no emotion, no surprise, no anger, nothing. She just stood there, blocking the door like a wall. I told you to go back, she said. Nobody spoke. The cubs were frozen. Even Bokri lost his brave words. Yuna stepped forward. The cubs stepped back. Her presence filled the hallway, even though she was smaller than all of them. There was something in her eyes, something that made them feel like prey instead of hunters. You think this is a game? Yuna asked. Her voice was soft but sharp. You think you can disobey orders and face no consequences? We just wanted to know, Riki said. His voice was tiny. Know what? What do you think you have the right to know? Why Instructor Tejo did not come, said Tovi. We are his students. We care about him. Yuna's eyes softened for just a second. Then they became hard again. If you care about him, you will leave. Now. But Bokri had found his courage again. His fear was turning back into anger. He did not like being told what to do. He did not like feeling scared of a human. No, he said. Yuna looked at him. What did you say? I said no. Bokri stepped forward. He was taller than Yuna. His forearms spread wide. His claws glowed in the dim light. I am tired of humans giving orders. I am tired of pretending that you are our masters. We are Valari. We are born warriors. You are nothing. The other cubs watched with wide eyes. Nobody had ever talked to an instructor like this before. Yuna did not move. She did not blink. She just looked at Bokri like he was a bug on the ground. "You are young," she said. "Young and stupid. You do not understand what you are doing." "Do not." "I understand perfectly," Bokri said. "You are hiding something. The human instructor is weak. Maybe he is sick. Maybe he is dying. I do not care. But I will not be lied to." He pushed past Yuna. His shoulder hit her arm, but she did not fall. She did not even move. The other cubs followed Bokri, squeezing past Yuna into the chamber. They expected her to stop them, to fight them, to call for help. But she did nothing. She just watched them go with those cold, cold eyes. "You will regret this," she said quietly. But the cubs did not hear her. They were already inside. Inside the chamber, there was darkness. The lights were off. The air smelled strange like metal and something else. Something warm and thick. "Where is the light switch?" asked Miru. Bokri found it and pressed. Light filled the room. And then the cubs saw him. Instructor Tejo was sitting in the corner of the room. His body was covered in bandages, white cloth wrapped around his arms, his chest, his face. Blood had soaked through in many places, making red spots like flowers of pain. His eyes were closed, his breathing was slow and heavy. Around him, the walls had marks, long scratches, deep cuts. The floor had dark stains. And on the wall, hanging like a trophy, was the claw of a nightclaw beast. The cubs stopped breathing. They knew what a nightclaw was. Every child in the galaxy knew. It was a monster from the dark planets. A creature that killed whole armies. A beast so dangerous that entire colonies had been destroyed just because one appeared. And their human instructor had killed one. Alone, in silence. The room was quiet. The cubs stared. Their mouths were open. Their bodies were frozen. Nobody said a word. Nobody could. The claw hung on the wall like a dark moon. It was as long as a cub's arm, curved and black, with edges sharp enough to cut steel. The cubs knew this claw. They had seen pictures of it in their books, heard stories about it from their parents. This was the claw of a nightclaw beast, the most feared creature in the known galaxy. And it was here. In Instructor Tejo's chamber. Mounted on his wall like a simple decoration, Ricky was the first to speak. His voice came out like a whisper. Is that real?" Nobody answered. They all knew it was real. The smell of it, old blood and darkness filled the room. It was not something that could be copied or faked. Bokri stood at the front of the group. His body was stiff. His forearms hung at his sides, claws no longer showing. All his pride, all his anger, had disappeared. Now there was only shock and something that looked like fear. Tovi stepped forward slowly. Her eyes moved from the claw to Instructor Tejo. He sat in the corner, wrapped in bandages. Still as a statue, his chest moved up and down with each breath. But that was the only sign that he was alive. "He fought a nightclaw," Tovi said. Her voice was full of wonder. "Alone. He fought it alone. That is impossible," Bokri whispered. But even he did not believe his own words anymore. Instructor Yuna stepped into the room behind them. She walked past the cubs without looking at them. Her steps carried her to Tejo's side, where she kneeled down and touched his forehead gently. "His fever is still high," she said to herself. "But he will live." The cubs watched in silence. They did not know what to say or do. Everything they had believed, everything they had thought about humans, was breaking apart in their minds. "How?" asked Doru. He was the quiet one. The one who always thought before speaking. "How did he fight a nightclaw? Our armies need 50 warriors to kill one. Our best soldiers, with the best weapons. And even then, many die." Yuna did not answer right away. She stood up and turned to face the cubs. Her eyes were no longer cold. They were sad and tired. "Sit down," she said. It was not an order. It was more like a request. The cubs sat on the floor. Their legs were weak anyway. They looked up at Yuna like children waiting for a bedtime story, except this story was real. Yuna looked at the claw on the wall. Memories filled her eyes. 2 nights ago, she began. Instructor Tejo was doing his night patrol. He does this every night, walking around the academy grounds to make sure everything is safe. It is not his job. Nobody asked him to do it, but he does it anyway, because that is who he is. She paused for a moment. That night, he found tracks near the east wall. Strange tracks. Deep claw marks in the ground. He followed them into the forest. Miru gasped. Into the forest? At night? Alone? Yes, said Yuna. He knew what he would find. The tracks were clear. A nightclaw had come close to the academy. Very close. The cubs shivered. They thought about their rooms, their beds, their sleeping bodies. Just 2 nights ago, a monster had been outside their walls. They had not known. They had slept peacefully, while death walked in the shadows. He could have called for help, said Tovi. Why did he not call for help? Yuna looked at her. Think about it. If he had called for help, alarms would have gone off. The whole academy would have woken up. Every student, every cub, every elder, they would have been scared. Some would have tried to run, some would have tried to fight. And in that chaos, the Nightclaw would have attacked. She let the words sink in. Nightclaws hunt fear. They can smell it, taste it, feel it in the air. The more scared you are, the stronger they become. If hundreds of students had panicked, the beast would have fed on that fear. It would have become unstoppable. Ricky hugged his knees. So he went alone. To keep us safe? Yes. The room was heavy with silence. The cubs looked at their instructor, this small, soft human wrapped in bloody bandages, and saw him differently now. He was not weak. He was not a coward. He was something else, something they did not have a word for. What happened in the forest? Asked Bokri. His voice was quiet now, almost humble. Yuna closed her eyes. I do not know all the details. I only know what I saw when I found him. He was lying on the ground, covered in blood, his own and the creature's. The Nightclaw was dead beside him. Cut open from throat to stomach, Teho had used nothing but his knife. A knife? Doru could not believe it. He killed a Nightclaw with a knife? Humans have no claws, said Yuna. No fangs. No armor. But they have something else. Something that your books do not teach you about. What? Asked Tovi. Yuna smiled. It was a sad, proud smile. Will. Humans have will. The stubborn, stupid, impossible will to keep fighting when there is no hope. To stand up when their bodies are broken. To refuse to die until the job is done. She walked to the claw on the wall and touched it. The Nightclaw was 3 times his size. It was faster than him, stronger than him, deadlier than him. Any normal creature would have run away. Any smart creature would have found help, but Teho is human, and humans do not know how to quit. The cubs sat in silence, thinking about her words. They had always thought of humans as the weak species, the ones who needed technology and numbers to survive. But now, they saw the truth. Humans were not weak. They were just different. Their strength was not in their bodies. It was in their minds. In their hearts. Will he be okay? Asked Ricky. There were tears in his small eyes. Yuna nodded. He is strong. His body is healing. By tomorrow, he will be awake. By next week, he will be back in the arena. But the wounds, said Miru. They look so bad. Humans heal, said Yuna. Slowly, but completely. Their bodies are designed to recover from damage that would kill other species. Another gift of their evolution. Bokri stood up slowly. His head was down. His claws were hidden. He looked like a different cub now, smaller, younger, humbler. I said bad things about him, Bokri whispered. I called him weak. I said he was a coward. Yuna looked at him. There was no anger in her eyes, only understanding. You were young and foolish. But now you know better. I want to apologize, said Bokri. When he wakes up, I want to tell him I am sorry. Then tell him. But not with words. Yuna walked toward the door. Show him through your actions. Train harder. Fight braver. Become the warrior he is teaching you to be. That is the only apology he will accept. The cubs stood up, one by one. They looked at their sleeping instructor one last time. The bandages, the blood, the scars, these were not signs of weakness. They were badges of honor. Proof that this human had done what no Valari could do alone. They filed out of the room quietly. Their minds were full of new thoughts, new feelings. They were changed. All of them. They would never look at humans the same way again. And as they walked back to their rooms, the claw on the wall seemed to watch them, a reminder of the battle they had slept through, and the hero who had fought it alone. The cubs did not go to their rooms. They could not. Their minds were too full, their hearts too heavy. Instead, they walked to the garden and sat among the purple flowers and blue vines. The twin suns were high in the sky now, bright and warm, but the cubs felt cold inside. Nobody spoke for a long time. They just sat there, thinking about what they had seen. The bandages, the blood, the claw, the sleeping man who had almost died to protect them. Ricky broke the silence first. "I cannot stop thinking about it," he said. His voice was small and shaky. 2 nights ago, I was sleeping in my bed. I was dreaming about food and games. And outside, he was fighting a monster. He was dying. And I was dreaming. "We did not know," said Tovi. "How could we know?" "That is what makes it worse," said Doru. He was looking at the flowers, but his eyes were far away. He did not want us to know. He fought in silence. He bled in silence. He almost died in silence, all so we could have our peaceful dreams. Miru wiped her eyes. Tears were falling, even though she tried to stop them. Why? Why would he do that for us? We are not his family. We are not even his species. We are just students. "Maybe that is why," said a cub named Hoshi. He was thin and smart, with glasses that helped his weak eyes. He rarely spoke during training, but he thought more than anyone. "Maybe that is what it means to be an instructor. To protect your students. Even if it costs you everything." Bokri was sitting apart from the group. His head was in his hands. He had not said a word since they left the chamber. Now, finally, he looked up. His eyes were red. "I feel sick," he said. "All those things I said about him, calling him weak, saying he was hiding. And the whole time, he could not finish." His voice broke, and he looked away. Tovi moved closer to him. She put one of her 4 arms on his shoulder. "We all made mistakes," she said gently. "We all believed the wrong things. But now we know the truth." "The truth," Bokri repeated bitterly. "The truth is that I am a fool. My father told me humans are weak. My grandfather told me the same. Every elder I have ever met says that Valari are stronger, faster, better. But look at us. We are sitting here, crying, while a human lies in a bed of blood because he saved our lives." Doru nodded slowly. "Perhaps our elders were wrong. Or perhaps they did not understand." "Understand what?" asked Riki. "That strength is not just about muscles and claws." Doru looked at his own 4 arms. They were strong, built for fighting, for climbing, for survival. But what good were they if he could not use them when it mattered? Instructor Tejo has no claws, no extra arms. His body is smaller and weaker than ours, but he walked into the forest alone to face a Nightclaw. We could not even walk into his chamber without being scared. The words hung in the air like a challenge. The cubs looked at each other, feeling the weight of their own weakness. "I want to be like him," said Ricky suddenly. His voice was stronger now. "I want to be brave like that. I want to protect people, even when I am scared. Even when I am alone." "We all do," said Tovi. "But how? How do we become that strong?" Hoshi pushed his glasses up. "We train. We train harder than ever before. We listen to everything he teaches us. And we never, ever forget what he did for us." The cubs nodded. A new feeling was growing in their hearts. It was not fear anymore. It was not shame. It was determination, the fierce desire to become better, to become worthy of the protection they had been given. They sat in the garden for hours, talking about Instructor Tejo and what they had learned. They shared stories they had heard about humans, old tales that had seemed like lies before, but now felt like truth. Stories of humans fighting impossible battles. Stories of humans surviving in places where no other species could live. Stories of humans refusing to give up, no matter what. "My aunt works on a ship with humans," said Miru. "She told me that once, their ship crashed on an ice planet. The whole crew was hurt. Everyone thought they would die. But the human captain carried them, one by one, to safety. He walked through snow and storms for 3 days. When they found him, his legs were frozen solid. He could not move. But he was still alive. And so was everyone he carried." "That is insane," said Bokri. "How is that possible?" "I do not know," said Miru. "But my aunt swears it is true. She says humans are impossible to kill. Not because they are strong, but because they refuse to die." Doru thought about this. Maybe that is what Instructor Yuna meant. About will. About the refusal to quit. "But where does it come from?" asked Tovi. "We are Valari. We are born warriors, fighting is in our blood. But we still know when to run. We still know when a battle is lost. Humans do not seem to know that. They fight even when there is no hope." "Maybe that is why they win," said Hoshi. "Because they do not know how to lose." The twin suns began to set. The sky turned from blue to orange to purple. The garden grew darker, and the cubs knew they should go inside. But they stayed a little longer, watching the colors change. "What will we say to him?" asked Ricky. "When he wakes up? What will we say?" "I do not know," said Tovi. "Words seem too small." "Then we will not use words," said Bokri. He stood up, and for the first time since the chamber, he looked like himself again, proud and strong. But there was something different in his eyes now, something deeper. "Tomorrow, when training starts, we will show him. We will train until our bodies break. We will fight until we cannot stand. We will become the warriors he believes we can be. That will be our message. That will be our thank you." The other cubs stood up too. They looked at Bokri with new respect. He had been wrong before, but he was not running from his mistakes. He was facing them. That took its own kind of courage. "Together," said Doru. "Together," the others repeated. They walked back to their rooms as the last light disappeared. The stars came out, bright and countless, filling the sky like scattered diamonds. Somewhere out there, beyond those stars, were the dark planets where Nightclaws lived. Somewhere out there was danger that most species could not even imagine. But here, in this academy, a human had faced that danger alone, and survived. The cubs fell asleep with new dreams. Not dreams of games and food, like before. Dreams of strength and bravery. Dreams of becoming something more than they were. And in a dark chamber at the end of the hall, Instructor Tejo opened his eyes. He was awake, he was alive, and he had heard everything. A small smile appeared on his lips, the first smile he had shown in months. Then he closed his eyes again and returned to healing sleep. Tomorrow, he would train his cubs, and they would be ready. The twin suns rose again. Light filled the sky, painting the academy walls in gold and orange. It was a new day, the day after the discovery. The day that would change everything. The cubs woke early. They did not need anyone to call them. They were already awake, already dressed, already walking toward the arena. Their steps were quick and eager. Their hearts were beating fast, but not from fear, from excitement, from hope. They reached the arena before the suns were fully up. The sand was cool under their feet. The weapons on the walls shone in the early light. Everything looked the same as yesterday. But the cubs were different. They stood in the circle, all 12 of them, waiting in silence. They did not push each other or make jokes. They did not talk about food or games. They just waited. Eyes fixed on the entrance. Minutes passed. The light grew brighter. And then, they saw him. Instructor Tejo walked through the entrance. His steps were slow but steady. Bandages still covered parts of his body, his arms, his chest, one side of his face. Dark spots showed where blood had soaked through. He looked like a man who should be lying in bed, not walking to training, but his eyes were clear. His back was straight, and when he reached the center of the circle, he stood like a mountain that nothing could move. The cubs bowed. Not the quick, careless bow they usually gave. A deep bow, all the way down, holding it for a long moment. When they stood up, some of them had tears in their eyes. Tejo looked at them. His face was calm, showing nothing, but something in his eyes softened, just for a second. "You came early," he said. His voice was rough, like stones rubbing together. "Yes, Instructor," the cubs said together. "Why?" Bokri stepped forward. He stood straight, his forearms at his sides, his eyes meeting Tejo's without looking away. "We came to train," Bokri said. "We came to learn. We came to become warriors worthy of your teaching." Tejo was silent for a moment. He looked at Bokri, then at the other cubs. They all looked different today. There was fire in their eyes, a hunger that had not been there before. "You went to my chamber," Tejo said. It was not a question. The cubs lowered their heads. Shame colored their faces. "We are sorry, Instructor," said Tovi. "We did not mean to. I did not ask for an apology." They looked up, confused. Tejo walked slowly around the circle, looking at each cub one by one. His bandaged feet made soft sounds on the sand. "You were curious," he said. "Curious about why I was absent. Curious about what I was hiding. That curiosity made you disobey orders. It made you storm into my chamber like soldiers attacking an enemy base." The cubs waited for the punishment. Surely he would be angry. Surely he would make them run laps until they collapsed. But Tejo stopped walking. A small smile appeared on his face, so small that only those watching closely could see it. "Good," he said. The cubs blinked. They looked at each other, not understanding. "Good?" Ricky repeated. "Curiosity is the first sign of a warrior," said Tejo. "A true fighter never accepts things blindly. They question, they seek. They refuse to be satisfied with half-truths. You disobeyed orders, yes, but you did it because you cared, because you wanted answers. That is not weakness. That is strength." He walked back to the center of the circle. His eyes moved across the cubs, touching each of them. "I heard your conversation in the garden," he said. The cubs gasped. They had been so sure they were alone. "You talked about becoming stronger. About training harder. About proving yourselves." Tejo nodded slowly. "Those are good words. But words are easy. Actions are hard." He reached to his side and pulled out his knife. It was the same knife he had used to kill the Nightclaw, simple, plain, with a blade no longer than a hand. But now, the cubs looked at it with awe. This small piece of metal had ended a monster. "Today, I will teach you something new," said Tejo. "Not a technique, not a movement. Something more important." He held up the knife. The morning light reflected off its blade. "This knife is nothing special. It is not made of rare metals. It is not enchanted with magic. It is just a tool, simple, sharp, and small. By itself, it could not even scratch a Nightclaw's skin." He looked at the cubs. "But in the right hands, with the right will, this knife can kill anything, because it is not the weapon that wins the fight. It is the warrior who holds it." He put the knife away and raised his hands. They were wrapped in bandages, but his fingers moved freely. "You are Valari. You have claws, fangs, forearms, and bodies built for battle. These are your natural weapons, gifts from your ancestors. But they are just tools. Without the will to use them, they are worthless." Bokri stepped forward. His voice was humble but strong. "Teach us, Instructor. Teach us to have will like yours." Tejo looked at him for a long moment. Something passed between them, understanding, respect, and something close to pride. "I cannot teach you will," said Tejo. Will is not something you learn. It is something you build, piece by piece, through pain and failure, and getting up when you fall. I can show you the path, but you must walk it yourselves. He raised his hand and pointed at the weapons on the wall. Choose a weapon. Any weapon. Today, we train until your arms cannot move, until your legs cannot stand, until your bodies beg you to stop, and then we train more. The cubs ran to the wall. They grabbed swords, spears, staffs, and shields. Their eyes were bright with determination. Their muscles were tense with energy. Instructor Yuna appeared at the entrance of the arena. She watched silently, a small smile on her face. She had been worried about Taeho, worried that his wounds would slow him down, that his spirit would be broken. But looking at him now, standing tall in the center of the arena, she knew her worries were foolish. Humans did not break. They bent, they bled, they suffered. But they did not break. The training began. It was the hardest training the cubs had ever experienced. Taeho pushed them beyond their limits, past the point where their bodies screamed for rest. He made them run, fight, fall, and rise again. He showed no mercy. He gave no breaks. And the cubs did not complain, not once. They trained until the twin suns reached their peak. They trained until the suns began to set. They trained until the sky turned dark and the stars came out. When it was finally over, the cubs lay on the sand, breathing hard. Their bodies were covered in sweat and bruises. Their muscles were on fire. They could barely move, but in their hearts, something new had grown. Something strong and bright and unbreakable. Taeho stood over them. He looked tired too. His wounds had bled through the bandages again, but he was still standing. Always standing. "You did well," he said. It was the first time he had ever praised them. The cubs smiled, even though smiling hurt. They had earned those words. They had suffered for them. Bokri lifted his head from the sand. "Instructor," he said weakly. "Yes? Thank you. For saving us. For fighting alone so we could sleep in peace." "We will never forget." Taeho was silent for a moment. Then he nodded once. "Do not thank me," he said. "Become strong. Protect the ones weaker than you. Fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. That is how you thank me." He turned and walked toward the exit. His steps were slow, his body heavy. But before he left, he stopped and looked back at his students. "Training resumes tomorrow," he said. "Same time. No excuses." The cubs laughed weakly. Even broken and exhausted, they were happy. Happier than they had ever been. "Yes, Instructor," they said together. Taeho nodded and walked away. Yuna joined him at the exit, and together, they disappeared into the night. The cubs stayed in the arena, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there were monsters and dangers, and things that could end worlds. But here, in this academy, they were learning to face those things. They were learning from a human who had shown them what true strength meant. And when they finally fell asleep right there on the sand, too tired to move, they dreamed of becoming heroes. Just like their instructor. The human who never stopped fighting. The human who taught them that even the weakest could be strong. The human who changed their lives forever.